The Lively Little Rabbit by Ariana, illustrated by Gustav Tengren. Way back in the woods lived a lively little rabbit. He was just a plain little rabbit. He had 2 long ears and a little pink nose that wiggled up and down, and a fluffy cotton tail. This lively little rabbit had nothing to do all day long but nibble leaves and roots and play with his brothers and sisters. Most of the day he would slide down a big hill, and the lively little rabbit was always in front, the first one to reach the bottom. All the little rabbits would have had a wonderful time, except for the weasel who lived in a hole in the forest. That old weasel was mean and grumpy, and always pushing his sharp nose into everything. Besides, he was always ready to eat little rabbits for breakfast. So the lively little rabbit, who didn't want to be eaten for breakfast, was very careful to keep out of the weasel's way. So were his brothers and sisters. Whenever they saw the mean old weasel coming, they jumped quickly into their hole and stayed there until it was safe to come out again. And the lively little rabbit was always the first one down the hole. The weasel was a very cunning weasel, too. One day, when the lively little rabbit was alone in his hole, the weasel wriggled down into it by the back door. For a minute, the lively little rabbit thought he was going to be eaten for breakfast. But he was smart, and quick as a flash, he jumped out of the front door and began to run as fast as he could. He was so scared that he ran and ran until he came to the end of the forest. Never had he seen such a place as this before. There were big hills, and roads going up and down, and wide fields, and a pretty brook, and a little village with smoke coming out of chimneys. It was wonderful. But the lively little rabbit was not much interested in the hills, or the fields, or the brook, or the little village. He just wanted his dinner. "Oh my," he thought, "I'm so hungry. I wish I had 200,000 million great big mushrooms to eat right now." A red squirrel, who lived with his family in a nearby tree, heard this remark. In 1 glide and 2 jumps and 3 hops, he reached a garden and came back with a bunch of delicious golden carrots. "Oh, thank you, Red Squirrel," said the lively little rabbit, very pleased. "I love carrots. You are a friend indeed." After the rabbit had eaten all his carrots, and had decided that they tasted even better than 200,000 million mushrooms, he decided to spend the night with his new friend. At first he thought it was a funny idea to sleep way up in the tree, but the red squirrel pushed him and pulled him and nudged him and shoved him, and finally they were both settled, snug and peaceful, high up in the tree under the stars. When the lively little rabbit woke up the next morning, he scrambled down from the tree, turned a couple of somersaults in the wet grass, and said good-bye to the red squirrel. He was going to look around and try to find his brothers and sisters. All day long he hopped through the woods, but he could not remember the way home, so he had to come back in the evening to the squirrel's tree, very tired and quite unhappy. The next day the red squirrel, who was full of wise ideas, took the lively little rabbit to his friend the owl. This owl was an old owl who had lived in the woods for a long, long time, and he knew his way through the forest better than anyone else. The lively little rabbit told him of his troubles. "Oh, Mr. Owl," he said, "I miss my brothers and sisters so much. I wish you would help me to find my way back to them." The owl had a kind heart, and he felt sorry for the little rabbit. "It is my opinion," he said, "that I know the place where you live. I shall go and take a look." But, like practically all owls, he did not like to travel in the daytime, so he waited until it got dark, then opened his wings and flew away. "Good luck!" cried the lively little rabbit and the red squirrel. "Good luck, and please hurry back." In no time at all, the owl had found the rabbit's home. Down he swooped and told the news to all the little rabbits. What a happy surprise it was for them to find that their brother was still alive and well. "Please go and get him," they said to the owl. "Please, please." "Certainly," said the owl, flying away. "I'll find him, and I'll be right back." The little rabbits didn't have to wait long. "Here they come! Here they come!" they all cried at once, and sure enough, there came the owl, flying close to the ground to show the way to the lively little rabbit, who was hopping along just as fast as he could. The red squirrel was hopping along too. He had come for a visit. "Hello, what's the news?" said the lively little rabbit. "Oh dear," cried the little rabbits, "the mean old weasel came again this morning and ate our great-grandmother on Daddy's side for breakfast." This made the lively little rabbit very sad. "Something must be done," he said. "What? What?" said the other little rabbits. "I think I know," said the wise squirrel. "We must give that weasel a terrible, terrible scare." And he told all the little rabbits his plan. It was a wonderful idea. They were going to build a make-believe dragon out of leaves and twigs. They would all crawl inside to make it go, and the lively little rabbit was to pretend to be the head. Early next morning they set to work, and the wise squirrel fixed the lively little rabbit up to make him look very fierce indeed. Soon the dragon was all ready, and the squirrel and the rabbits looked at their work with pride. It was so very funny, especially when the owl, who was hidden inside with the rabbits, flapped his wings and shouted, "Ooh! Ooh!" What a wonderful dragon it was. Meanwhile, the mean old weasel was waking up for the day. He stretched, and he yawned, and he growled, and he said to himself,
Now, what about breakfast? That lively little rabbit will make a delicious meal, and I won't let him get away this time."
So the old weasel came out of his hole and sneaked his way through the woods. But just as the mean old weasel came to the top of the hill, up popped the make-believe dragon coming up the other side. It flapped its wings and wiggled its tail and shouted in a very loud voice, "Ooh! Ooh! Ooh!" The weasel was terribly frightened. He was so scared that for a minute he couldn't move at all. Then he turned around and ran. He ran away so fast that he would still be running if he had not stumbled on a rock. But he did, and he rolled to the bottom of the hill. There he picked himself up and began to run away again. But now he couldn't run so fast because he had banged his nose and bruised his legs and twisted his tail so badly that it stayed curled for the rest of the day. It was a great day for the little rabbits. They all ran around and cheered, "It worked! It worked! Hurrah for the owl and the red squirrel!" All day long, way back in the woods, the lively little rabbit danced with his brothers and sisters and their friend the wise red squirrel. And in between dances they had fine things to eat. The rabbits ate lettuce and carrots and all sorts of green things, and the squirrel had the very finest nuts. The owl had never learned to dance, so he just sat in a nearby branch and said over and over again, "Hoo, hoo, hoo," in a happy voice. Then, because he was very sleepy, he asked to be excused and went to bed. The very next day, the mean old weasel, who was still full of bumps and bruises, moved far away from the woods. Never again has he ever tried to eat a lively little rabbit for breakfast. The end.